Welcome to Mayor's Minute on Castanet.net. I'm Dustin Godfrey, and I'm joined by Mayor Andrew Jakubeit. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Mayor's Minute is a new segment on Castanet in which we'll be sitting down with Mayor Jakubeit to talk about what's going on in City Hall this week. So we're going to jump right into it here with a bit on the infrastructure deficit. The city's been holding some engagement talks with the public on how to deal with the infrastructure deficit, and most recently this week the city reached out to the business community. What kind of differences are you seeing in the responses from those two groups?
Well, first of all, we need to start identifying, reviewing the amount of that deficit so we can, right now it's at $175 million. I think after doing some thorough investigation, that number will probably go down. But we have to start looking at not just priorities to tackle, but what are the methods for dealing with that? So does that mean increase of taxes? Does it mean a reduction of services? Do we take on more debt? Do we review some of the subsidies we give out? Some of the $1 leases, our economic investment zones, all those sorts of scenarios, and getting a different. So on Monday we met with the business community. Thursday of this week and Saturday at the convention center. Thursday 4 till 7, Saturday noon till 3. The convention center is for the public to come out and get an overview of what's happening and help us prioritize and give us some feedback on some of the options.
Sure. So while we're on that topic, when can we start to see some kind of a first draft of a roadmap for dealing with the deficit? We delayed our budget till end of January to help with opportunities for engagement and some things coming out of engagement if we can build that into our budget. So I think in January you'll start seeing some of the suggestions. There's a lot of questions being asked right now, so we're trying to evaluate those questions or answer those questions and put that information on the website. So Shape Your City Penticton, shapeyourcitypenticton.ca is that portal to get that information, to interact and to get new information coming on a regular basis. So over the next 2 months, I think you're going to start seeing a framework, a basic framework at least. Sure. I want to jump now to an announcement the city made on Monday. The provision for talks in 2019 to include a potential amenity in Skaha Lake Park is now no longer on the bill. What led up to that decision and how was it made?
I think on November 1st when we talked about the enhanced marina agreement and a settlement agreement with Trio and Skaha Lake Park, there was a clause for 2019 park amenity, and I identified more or less the same amount of green space, a very similar amount of green space in Skaha Park that we would go to a community in 2019 and blue sky, create something, whatever they wanted to see happen, we'd go to Trio to offer to them. And that was still a concern to some people because it identified potential for green space. And the city and Trio heard that and said, maybe we should look at revising that. And so now there's a clause that the park amenity is removed, and what's in there now is a boathouse and concession, and that's basically restricted to the footprint of those two buildings potentially coming as one. And there's a huge caveat that says no reduction of green space and no reduction of boat trailer parking.
Sure. Last week, council endorsed opening up the emergency shelters for -2. Has Compass House gotten back to the city on that, on whether that's viable?
We did get something from our fire chief, basically saying, we now will have a -2 will be that threshold in terms of temperature, and I think it was good because the BC Housing, who's the main funder of it, Salvation Army, who runs the Compass House, neither body wanted to sort of be that authority that decides what the level should be, and so they reached out to council to say help us with that, and we had a bit of a debate over what that number should be, and I think -2 is a bit more in line. It was -5 before, and we get windshield here, and as soon as you get below 0, it is difficult for many, and finding that number was probably hard for us to do as well. I think -2 is more in line with other communities around the province.
Sure. One of the issues that was discussed was the potential disruption of Compass House's regular services. So if that turns out to be the case with the -2 threshold, would the city start looking at another venue, or would the city start, like, is that in the city's minds right now?
Not really. I mean, we're not the ones operating the service. We're not the funders of the service as well. But obviously, it is a social issue that we're aware of, and initially they haven't come back to us and said, "Hey, wait a second, this is going to cause us concern." They've, I think, made some arrangements to try to make it work. And I think as they go through the season and at the end of the year, they review how that turned out and what changes need to be implemented for next year.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's Mayor's Minute. Send your questions to letters@castanet.net. For Castanet News, I'm Dustin Godfrey, and I'm joined again by Mayor Andrew Jakubeit.
Thanks.